Now, Chris took control here, changed the conversation, politely, and politely had a bit more chit-chat, finished the phone call and put the phone down. And I'll tell you what, to be quite honest, I knew absolutely zilch. And yet in the back of my mind, I was really curious. You see, I was feeling a bit gutted because I thought, if he's working with successful people, why hasn't he rang me up? If I just kept my mouth shut, he was about to do that. Hey, but luck was on my side, and Chris hadn't prejudged me on this opportunity, and 4 months later, he rang again. I mean, how many people have you spoken to that you might have already classified as a no? Now, I could have so easily, would you have classified me as a no? Luck was on my side, though, and rang me back. On this occasion, he was much more direct, and already known I had no time. I certainly had no time. I was working 70, 80 hours a week. I had my children at weekends. He actually approached me with the business development consultancy role and got straight to the point, no chit-chat, and said, Ian, if there was a way to increase your income without affecting your current business, would that be of interest to you? Of course it would, Chris, as long as it's got nothing to do with selling. And Chris let that go straight over his head and said, hey, well, let's meet up and I'll explain things in detail. But listen, Ian, I'm not going to promise you anything at this stage. Now, I thought that was a bit of a cheek. But in truth, as I learnt later, I believe he was rightly valuing his time. And he got me to drive 160 miles. We arranged to meet at Weston-super-Mare. He explained he wanted to introduce me to some of the successful people that he was working with. But initially wanted to spend an hour with me to go through some of the basics. No, I didn't know it, but obviously he was going to take me to a seminar. He didn't explain all that, but he achieved what he wanted to do. I then rang Chris I got up early on the Sunday morning, got changed and everything. Chris received a phone call from me that Sunday morning. I said, oh, hi, Chris, listen, I've had some challenges. I got up this morning, got changed, got in the car, and hey, Chris, you wouldn't believe it, but the battery was flat, And, with the help of a next-door neighbour and some jump leads, we got this started. And then you wouldn't believe it, Chris, I got back in the car and the tyre was flat. And, anyway, that was no problem, Chris, because put the spare tyre on, and I was just about to leave, and I looked at the spare that I'd put on, and there's a great big gash in the wall, Chris. In fact, it was too big to actually risk driving 160 miles. So I really can't make it, Chris. Now, were they excuses or what? I mean, that was absolutely dead genuine. Looking back, I think if I'd got that phone call, I would have thought, yeah, Ian's making some excuses, doesn't want to see it. Now, Chris, he actually said, well, listen, Ian, you're obviously serious about checking this out. Well, what I'll do is I'll make some time available. You come down next Saturday, we'll have a bite to eat, and I'll run through what we've got our hands on. Right? And he got us committed there, and I said, okay, that's great, Chris. I asked if I could bring my girlfriend down. Now, because I'm a sort of a business consultant, I appraise businesses, the viability of businesses, we do budgets and appraisal work. I'm very much a detail person, show me profit and loss account balance sheets, and I feel at home. And really, I was desperate to actually pigeonhole this or place it in what I thought it really was. So I said, Chris, can you send me some information? And he said, yeah, sure, Ian, I'll put some information together and put it in the post. Right, now, by Wednesday, it hadn't arrived. So I rang Chris up. I said, hey, Chris, I haven't had this information through yet. Where is it? And he said, well, listen, tell you what, it's just taking a bit of time, Ian. By the time I get it in the post now, you're going to be here. I'll give it to you on Saturday. Now, what I hadn't realised until months later, Chris had rang Upline to check that he was following the best course of action. Tim had asked him one question. Well, Ian, will Ian come down on Saturday without you sending that information? And Chris said, yes, he will. And Tim said, well, don't send the information. See, Chris could have sent that information, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't have improved on the result he was going to get. It might have been overkill. He was confident that I was... It's now the end of April, and to be quite honest, with most of my clients having March, April year ends, I knew I wasn't going to get involved in anything. I remember, but on that Saturday night, I remember little from the night, except I hadn't had anything to eat all day and felt really hungry. And then Chris made us sit through this patient before we were going to have any food. And that was salad, and that really didn't fill me up either. But I don't remember much of that night, except for two things. There was another couple in the room that night, and Chris was dressed dead smart. He was very professional, and Anne was sitting on the end of the sofa, and I kept looking at her, and she never looked at me once. Her eyes focused on Chris and focused on the board. Afterwards, the other couple left, and we had a bite to eat. And I really started to try and grill Chris. I was really just keen to check this out, to find the catches, to find a good enough reason why I wasn't going to do this. But Chris wasn't going to be drawn, and really just talked about, some of the people he was working with, some of the things that people were doing in this business. And, I actually believe that he was doing two things, really. One was sort of doing a bit of dream building, talking about things that people can do. And the other thing was building the relationship, because it had been a long time since we'd ever really met up. Next morning, Chris, I believe, went through what I was later to find out was a follow-up. Now, I hadn't listened to tapes, hadn't read books, but I was about to drive back to Shropshire, so Chris went with the best plan of action at the time. And I wasn't a willing participant. I had lots of concerns. Was this some sort of pyramid-type operation or whatever? I mean, it was totally over my head. I probably had to see it a few more times later before I started to get a grasp of it. But he did overcome the concerns, and I could see the way he was talking that even though I had limited time, that this could work for me. What I did know, though, was that while I could see they actually believed they could help me, that it would work for me even with limited time. But one of the biggest things was that I could see from Chris and Anne that whether I did it or not, no matter what I said, they were obviously going to be successful. I have to say that it was their attitude and approach that they were going to succeed regardless of what I thought or said, gave me the belief that, crikey, this must be good. And I have to say that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I ended up being sponsored into this business. Chris gave us some information, a book and 2 tapes. I can't remember much driving home, but I do remember listening to that first tape, and it was the story tape by Mike and Di Beasley. I just couldn't believe. I kept looking at this tape, and I thought, is this real? I just couldn't believe the enthusiasm, and that journey home went really quick, and I do remember that enthusiasm. Since then, it's been a great pleasure to get to know them, friends. I'll tell you what, I've never come across a couple with such energy. The remainder of the follow-up probably took place on the phone. I was too busy. I wasn't going to get involved. And, Chris took on board my concerns, and that I wasn't going to get started, even if I was, for at least a couple of months. Now, instead of focusing on that, he said, hey, no, that's great, Ian. And he just focused on me gaining some more knowledge and promoted the seminar in May. And to be quite honest, that was the next time we met up. Although we were on the phone, or he rang me and he swapped some tapes, he sent some tapes in the post, he would talk to me about which part of which tape did I like, because it's great sending tapes, it's great letting me have tapes, but he didn't know I was listening to them. But when we chatted about what was on the tapes, he got the feedback to know I was listening to them. And I have to say, listening to a lot of tapes in the early days made a fantastic difference. It was about 2 weeks, those phone calls and those tapes probably got me to the stage I was excited about going to that seminar. The first seminar I made had a big impact on me. That was the first time I'd met any more people. Both the numbers there and the friendliness of everyone. I can't actually really remember much of what the speaker said that day. And here's another thing is, I actually desperately wanted to find something I didn't like or didn't relate to. Because if I could do that, it means I'd have a good reason not to start. You see, my biggest fear was actually doing something new I had never done before and embarrassing myself in the process. Because I had status, I was successful, I was a businessman. Obviously, I wouldn't do something and make myself look foolish. But I'll tell you, that seminar and listening to tapes and everything, I realized, the business was good. I couldn't find anything, and it really came down to me. So, like Chris said, he was going to help me get off to a good start and take into account my time challenges. At the end of May, Chris and I met up halfway off the M5 to go through a successful startup. A couple of dates were booked that Chris was going to come and do. So now armed with a list, the experience of conversations upline, I was about to start. The list, which had compiled over two days, and a bottle of red Bordeaux, was up to about 150. Now, I make that sound quite straightforward, but I was really resistant at building the list. To be quite honest, what was the point of putting more than 6 names of people that you knew were going to get interested and do it on? And plus I knew the ones that were obviously going to do it. And I really hated Chris for trying to make me build my list of names. But at the end of the day, I thought, well, no, go with the flow, And in fact, the longer I looked at my list, I thought I got the worst list in the UK. I could find every justifiable reason why, other people weren't going to be interested in this opportunity. But Chris kept encouraging me to have fun. And here's the key. He said, Ian, you are giving them the right to choose, not for me to have the responsibility to decide for them. And when he put it like that, it took the pressure off me. We were letting people choose, and I found that really good. In fact, I found the ad pack to be my best tool. And out of using about 20 for my first 2 get-togethers, I had 8 couples that actually came to those 2 meetings. The thing about the ad pack was it meant I could keep calls short. Because I don't know about anyone else, but I hated the phone and making calls, I heard Bill O'Brien sing a tape. that if you feel as though you're running out of breath, just say to the person you're speaking to on the phone, hey, hang on a second, there's someone at the door. I remember one telephone conversation, 4 people came to the door.